show. This is a topic I've wanted to talk about for a while, and there's just so much stuff going on. So sometimes if there's something on my mind and I really want to talk about it, I have to push it off because it's like, well, this happened today, this happened next day, and every single day this crap is going on. But this is a really important topic, and this is what people need to start getting their minds on, is the behavior of other people, because everyone's being engineered. And this thing that we've seen in the last couple of years, we've seen twofold. We've seen happening to women and happening to men. And this is how they're empowering this new world order. Because even if you watch or read anything with the Communist Manifesto or any of the stuff involving total takeover and control, it's about weakening men first. Now, they don't want you to say, oh, men's stronger than a woman, or anything like that, right? Even though obviously physically men are stronger than women, okay? Obviously, men and women serve different purposes. Women are a gift, I believe. Obviously, I love women, okay? As a straight male. Women are great, and I love women as people and individuals, especially strong mothers, right, who raise their children and aren't into this prideful feminist movement. But they don't want you to think that men are anything above or anything less. They want it to be women are higher, men are lower. And one of the things that the reason they do that is obviously because if a war breaks out and those types of things, well, you think, what are women going to go to war and men aren't? Well, they want you to think that's like, how dare you say that? That's hateful, that's sexist. Just like they don't want you to say, well, a woman, a mother should be home raising the child with the husband, of course. But, men can't breastfeed. They don't want you to say any of these things that are normal things. Christian women understand this because the Bible teaches this. This is the stuff they're trying to reverse. You know what I mean? So here are the two things that I see going on that are really important to note. One, for men. We've seen this massive movement where men, grown men, are going back to their childhood. You've seen this trend of like retro behavior. You've seen this trend that's always trending on YouTube. If you type it in, like, toy hunt, you see all these adults going to toy stores, buying toys they had as kids for nostalgia, but focusing on this, taking their free time when they're not working to do these things, or even maybe this is their job, going and doing this stuff. But this is the weakening of men. They're taking men and they're turning them back into children. This isn't about, I want to collect, I used to have Ninja Turtles, so I want to collect them. Okay, well, if you want to have Ninja Turtle toys because it reminds you of your child, you buy them. But then when you have Star Wars, you have wrestling figures, all this stuff that you constantly see. It's showing and weakening men. It's showing men, and it's making men who should be facing the hard problems in today's world as men, it's making them look like complete pansies. And they're turning away from the problems and reverting to their childhood because it makes them feel good. Now, I know this because I can understand it. There are times when I get overwhelmed with this stuff, and I'll put on a football game or a baseball game from when I was a kid. And I'll put on an old Yankees game or something, and I remember it. I remember the feeling, the crowd, and it's nostalgic to me. And it's just a way for me to just take a brain breather sometimes when I need one, right? But it's nothing more than that. It's not something, I gotta go get the baseball cards that I had when I was a kid. It gets obsessive. And this is something that they're doing on purpose. There's a reason that retro from the 80s and the 90s is in, because men are reverting to this. Men aren't rising up against what the government is doing. In other time periods, every time period, men wouldn't put up with what they're doing now. Men would get together. The women would be taking care of the children, the men would get together, and they would go to war, civil wars, revolutionary wars. They didn't do this because they had nothing better to do and they wanted to lay their life down. They laid their lives down because there was a cause. And we're getting to a point now where we can feel where this is headed. And at some point, we may have to lay our lives down for Christ and also for our rights. Because when people start trying to pry into your home and have access to your children and your family and everything else, you're going to say, you know what? This is something to die for. I don't want these people near my kid. I don't want people who are cutting off their private parts near my kid. And you would have to. And then men at that point are going to be too weak to ever go to war. Men are going to be too weak to ever stand up for what they believe in. They continue to weaken men. Now look at the flip side of this. Women. The movements that we...
Giving your body what it needs to thrive doesn't have to be complicated. AG1 replaces all of these key health products in just one scoop. That's powerful nutrition, made powerfully simple. Subscribe now at athleticgreens.com/YouTube. Hondros College of Nursing, we're preparing the next class of nurses to join the front lines today. If you have the will, we have the better way to become a nurse that gets you in the field in as few as 12 months. Learn more at start.hondros.edu.
To weaken men. Now look at the flip side of this. Women. The movements that we see now are mainly being pushed by females. And thus you could look no further than a show like The View. And this isn't a knock on women. This is just the way it is. If you look at the stuff that's being pushed, if you look at the stuff with transgender, if you look at the stuff going on with the acceptance of those things and the acceptance, and even the New York Times publishing an article of a woman who lived in China. I mean, it's the most ridiculous article. It was shared on the website. I don't know the person's name off the top of my head, but I thank them for sharing it. And I think it was also featured on like Fox News or something, or somewhere else. But the New York Times, of course, pushing propaganda. A woman talking about living in communist China and how great communist China was. And that she's so thankful that the government raised her child. Because if she had done it on her own, instead of co-parenting with the government, because this is what they want. And it sounds insane, but it's true. They want you co-parenting with the government. In America, they used to do that because, in a sense, they didn't tell you, but they were letting the institutions and the schools co-parent your children. And people didn't know a lot about what was being taught there. There wasn't technology. There wasn't a way to share videos of what's going on in the classroom. Now, granted, it isn't as bad as it wasn't bad then like it is now, but they're sharing, obviously lie after lie after lie about history. So this woman sharing an article, and she's talking about, New York Times sharing this article, the woman's talking about co-parenting her children. And if communist China didn't help raise her child would be a disaster. She would be a disaster. So they're planting seeds to say, this is what we need. And a lot of women are on board with this because you see the loyalty of the Democratic Party to government before family. Government first. Like I've said before, it's like being on a sports team, right? Or being a fan, of a sports team. There's some crazy fans that think they're on the team and they talk about they're like, we got to do this. We can't do that. Right? And I've even been there before, accidentally slipping at the tongue. But there's literally people who think that. Well, with the Democratic Party, the liberal side, you could show them, Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton doing something with a child, and they'll still defend it. That's the point we've got to, because we've seen it with the potion. We've seen all the real data that's come out, and they completely ignore it because they don't want to admit they're wrong and they want to stay loyal to their party, right? That's what they're doing with men and women. So they're making women more in charge. They have these articles out there about, why men need to date woke women, right? To let the women wear the pants. And they hear stuff like this. They want to say it's a knock. Like, this guy's saying that, they'll say like, Time for Judgment is saying that women are dumb and women are being manipulated, hive-minded into doing this. But that's what they're doing. They're targeting women from that direction and they're weakening men from the other. Men and women have always been equal. I mean, sure, there was obviously time periods. I shouldn't say always. I get it that, there's been abusive men. There's been times where women couldn't vote. But the joke of it all is that your vote never counted, so it didn't matter, right? And there's times where women weren't allowed to work. Well, lucky them, because being a mother and raising a child is 100,000 times more work than going and sitting at a cubicle. Now they want to convince you of the opposite. They want to be like, be a mom. That's disgusting. You got to go compete in the workplace. Men don't think you could do it. Anyone can work in the workplace. You're doing pretty much nothing of relevancy. Women can find jobs, and women can come up with ideas and concepts and start businesses, of course. But they want you to think that all these things and these ideologies are more important to push than actually raising a family. But in reality, if you look at the history of the world, a woman's job is more important than a man's, in a sense. But they don't want you to think that as far as being a mom, giving birth to a child. So what do? They create all these psyops for women, empowering them and pushing their buttons, right? That's what we see with My Body, My Choice. Women have been sucked into that, hive-minded into that, thinking it's about you're a woman and we're not going to let you, we're going to take your rights away. They don't talk about the notion of the child and, killing of the child. I mean, they don't talk about that. They just say it's, they don't respect you, so they rile them up and they push them into this feminist movement. On the other side of things, what do we see men doing now? Men putting on lipstick. We see more and more men painting their nails. We see men into fashion. And they're like, if you say that, you're stereotyping what men are. Men throughout history have been alpha males for the most part. Sure, there's been men who don't want to fight. Nobody wants to fight and go to war. Nobody wants to risk their life unless there's a cause worth fighting for. So now, as they're pushing this onto people, they need to make sure that men are weakened, that men won't rise up. And they know that the majority of men, as they weaken them down, will turn to a liberal world order because they're just like, I don't want that. And Republican people are aggressive and they're violent, they're extremists. So they weaken them and they say, hey, remember a good time period? Don't listen to this stuff in the news. And they're like, I don't want to listen to it. And most people actually don't. The news, and MSNBC and all that stuff, they barely get 1 million views on their shows, which is pathetic. But they use other ways to influence people into being liberal and, seeing these extreme points. They push it in through every TV show and everything they possibly can, everything trending to give people this fake worldview. And then they go, hey, men out there, remember your toys when you were kids? Remember your video games? And again, it's one thing to be like, yeah, I like to once in a while play Tecmo Bowl, right? I mean, there's game, I play Nintendo. Rumor has it I play Sega CD sometimes, you catch my drift. But, to obsess over these things and then instead of acting like a man and an adult, start acting like a child. This is how this is being accomplished. This is how we're getting to this point. Look how many men out there, they run their mouth on Twitter, right? But then you see, they're completely weak men. And, they're like, that's stereotype, that's judgment. Okay, you can tell when somebody's a weak male, right? Just sitting around playing dork video games all day. I'm not saying if you play video games, you know what I'm talking about, the stereotype. They complain. They, repost liberal ideologies. They think that playing video games, they should get paid. I mean, it's just insane. But the weakening of men is how this is going to be pushed, and the empowerment of women. Women don't want to have kids anymore. Women don't want to raise their kids. And that's the most important thing for them, is that moms want to work instead of raising their children because of their ego, making them more narcissistic. And again, pushing the ideologies through women to push. And if you question the woman, you're a feminist. If you question a black woman, you're a feminist racist. While the men are just going, I agree with her. I agree, women's right to choose. I agree. I'm going to buy some WWF figures from when I was a kid, and I'm going to decorate my office with them, and I'm going to stage them in the ring. This is what they're doing. And people don't realize, because people get offended. So I know people are going to get offended listening. They're going to be like, no, I do that. And I'm not one of them. Yeah, but think about what this mindset does to people. Think about men now who are in their 30s and 40s who should be speaking up against what's going on and see what's actually going on. This type of crap that the government is pulling is what people used to go to war for, right? If they tried this 100 years ago with free speech, there wouldn't even be, just think about how quick the people would get together and stop them or stop participating in their government. They wouldn't pay their tax. There would be war. Now, everyone's just distracted with this nonsensical stuff. They don't stand up and fight for it because they're pushing people in the opposite direction. They're weakening men, they're strengthening women, and at the same time, they're getting away with all this stuff, and they shouldn't be allowed to get away with this stuff. War is going to come, and they expect everyone to lay down to them. When communist China is already infiltrated America, and these guys are marching the street, men are just going to be like, as long as I can have my Nintendo and my toys, I'm just going to ignore what's going on outside. Most of them won't have kids, so they won't even care. But the people out there who have kids are going to say, well, I don't want this crap with my kids. And if they have kids, some people who do this stuff, men who have been weakened, they're just like going to distract their kids and be like, it's okay, everything outside, it's fine. Let's play Nintendo together. Let's bond over all this nostalgia. And it just doesn't go to video games and toys. That's just an example. Disney's another perfect example. How many of these parents ignore all this stuff with Disney? There's so much stuff out there you could look at with Disney and trafficking and the CIA and Walt Disney with the DMLA. Oh, I've exposed this stuff trillions of times. Everybody has, who's awake for the most part, and has channels. Everyone knows about it. But there's still people who are awake who are like, I'm still going to go to Disney. Why? Well, because I didn't end up sucked into that, and I like Disney. Oh, okay, so you're going to go and you're going to show your kid Harry Potter and Snow White and Beauty and the Beast, and you're not going to realize that every single one of the themes of this has to do with magic and spells. Oh, the Beauty and the Beast, the spell and the rose, the magical rose. Oh, the magic slipper for Cinderella. Oh, Snow White with the apple and the Wicked Witch. Oh, Harry Potter and sorcery. Oh, Fantasia and the Sorcerer's Apprentice. It goes on and on and on. But people are nostalgic to it because why? It reminds them of a time period. That's why now more than ever you're seeing this with adults, right? People now who are 60 and 70 brought their kids to Disney. They're not nostalgic about it, like to the point people are now. You see 30 and 40-year-olds who literally work all year so they could spend their extra money going to Disney for a week. and they pretend it's like for their kid, but then you see how they behave there and the stuff they post, and they're like, what? I'm just having fun. I'm just having fun. I mean, look how spoiled of a society we have in general, and then top it off with adults who need this. And they look for this and they're like, well, this is for my kid. It's for my kid. But it's for them. And the reason that they turn to nostalgia is because they can't face what's happening now. That's why. That's why over the last 10 to 15 years, we see more of this, especially the last 5. It's because nobody wants to be controversial. Nobody wants to get canceled, even though in reality, how can anyone cancel you? Look at me, a perfect example. Go ahead, keep deleting channel after channel. Go ahead. I'll be back. Like I said, come John the Baptist me. You want me done? You want to stop me from talking? You come cut my head off. You want to throw me in jail? I'll talk to every prison guard. I'll talk to every prisoner. And we'll rise up. Go ahead. I'm way more dangerous in those situations than I am on YouTube or on the website because I'm actually not looking to do those types of things. But if you push me hard enough, I will naturally fight back like that. Because that's really what men are supposed to do. You stand up for what you believe in. That's what humans are supposed to do. And on the other side, the women who listen to the channel, they might not be as nostalgic as men because they're feeling empowered. So the men are just going, well, you know, all this stuff. You don't see women going, I want to get my Barbie dolls. None of that crap's trending. You see any of the videos on there, like women who are going, you know, unless they're trans or something, you don't see women, I'm getting my Barbie doll. I'm getting Hello Kitty stuff. I mean, I'm sure there's like a couple channels, but it's not a major thing like with the men. Why? Because all the stuff that's trending with women is about women's rights, equality, all of the trigger points of the New World Order that they've been hive-minded into. And have they done this? They've told women that the world's suppressing them. They've riled them up to a point, and then they feed them the ideologies that they think are the right ideologies. And their brain's not processing what's being done to them because they're narcissistic and prideful. And that goes both ways. Both are prideful, obviously. The men are pridefully stupid. The women are pridefully arrogant. Does that make sense? Or should I just say everyone's just pridefully ignorant? That probably makes more sense. So this is why we are where we are. These types of things that are subliminal that you would see and wouldn't think about. And I'm sure some of you have gotten sucked in, and I don't, look, this isn't a shot at you. I'm not saying, like I said earlier, I do stuff for nostalgia. You know, I watch home videos a lot, just so I can see when I'm, you know, as a kid and my parents, and great times, right? The things that we remember as great times. Wow, I wish I could go back then, and there wasn't this crap going on, because you were a kid, even though there was some crap going on, but you didn't know about it because you were a kid. So don't take it personally, but the push for it, that's the reason behind it. That's why we are where we are, because where are the men rising up? You might say, well, there's a lot of like alt-right. You think these people like the Mark Cernoviches, the Jack Prozobiak, I can't remember their name, Jeff C used to cover them all the time. These people at the Daily Wire, great entertainers, some of them, right? Matt Walsh. You think that when this stuff goes down that they're going to be capable of fighting? Are they going to be capable of handling what's coming? Or are they just going to kind of just talk about these certain trigger points and keep everybody like weakened? I'm not saying that what they do isn't a good thing. It's nothing to do with any of those, the Daily Wire and all that stuff. And that's only on the top of my mind because it's trending with the, you know, the Crowder stuff, all this stuff that I couldn't care less about. But it's on my mind because I think about these guys as men. And I don't know if I could see them on battle lines. You know, I could see them tweeting and doing videos, and you might say the same thing about me. But see, I know what's in my head, and I know what I'm prepared for. And I have a plan in place. And I'm ready. I'm fully ready. And I want everyone listening to be ready. And by that I mean, you stay armed, and you stay, you know, you get survival food. And you stay smart. You don't give in. You don't tell people what you have stored, because then they want it. Then they come for it when crap hits the fan. All these things I want everyone to be prepared for. These aren't things that the mainstream right-wing narratives talk about. So I know you can sit there and be like, well, you just talk on YouTube. I know how many of you message and say, when are you going to do something? When are we going to do something? It's not time yet. It's time to prepare. But part of preparing is the mindset that you have. Part of preparing is men being men again and women being women again. Women not worrying about nonsense about my body, my choice crap. And obviously nobody who listens to my channel is pro-abortion. But women also not putting work, and I shouldn't say not putting work, but of course you can work, but how important it is to be a mother. And the majority of you know how important it is to be a mother. And every husband should reiterate how important his wife is, in raising the child or just being a wife. Like we all have to work better and do better, but we have to see these things that are being done and try to wake people up and prepare. So this rant is about just that. I've seen this too much. I see all this stuff with men and I cringe. I always say it. I feel bad for the women out there. I cringe because I see how these men behave. And I'm not saying I'm a perfect person, a perfect example, because I'm not. But I'm definitely not one of these people like think, oh man, I gotta go to Nordstrom's or I gotta go to JCPenney and pick out a cool outfit so I look good and when I'm going here or there, and a nice tie and fashion, and oh, that's my hair, and oh my goodness, let me go get veneers for my teeth so I could fit in with all these weirdos out there with fake teeth and nothing. I mean, it's narcissistic, it's useless, it's pointless, and it takes men and it weakens them. So it goes both ways, both sides, men and women. And again, this is why we are where we are. Don't fall into the nostalgia. Face the music. And the music's not good. And the only reason that anyone out there doesn't see anything wrong with the world is because they're ignoring it. And if you're somebody out there and you see, oh, there is problems with the world. The problem is extremist Republicans and all this stuff. And you don't realize that you're being worked with Roe v. Wade and all this crap. It's just a work. It's to work us into division and war that can easily be conquered by our government because of the weakening of both sides. And if you don't look around and say, wow, this is a nightmare, we should do something like that. That's what men did throughout history. Women weren't on the front lines fighting war, not because men were like, oh, they're women. They shouldn't be on the front lines. They should be cooking and cleaning. Women did a ton during the war. They were medics. They still raised the children because all these men had kids. There was a reason that the men fought in wars. There's still a reason. I mean, we know women are in the army now. There's nothing wrong with that, really. But they want you to look at all these things, and they want to suck you into weakening you, into taking you back on a journey into the past where things were better, instead of saying, no, we're not going to let you do this. You're not going to take away my freedom of speech. I'm not going to Larry Fink and all these rich guys tell me what to think. But then they distract you with this stuff. And we go down this road of, I can't deal with it. At some point soon, they're going to push people far enough. They're not taking their foot off the pedal. They're going to push people far enough to where they say, all right, we got to do something. You're either going to crumble with this and give in and take the mark, or you're going to fight against it. You have to decide. But you also have to come out on the other side and be prepared for what's coming. Hope that rant makes sense. Don't take offense to it, man or woman. I love women. I don't love men, but I care about everybody who listens to the channel. I want you to know that, and I want everyone out there to be prepared. That's why I continue to do this. This isn't about anything other than that. If it was, then I would try to do things like, oh, maybe I have a channel, have 500,000 subs in less than a year. Maybe I'll go try to get big contracts and go work for the Daily Wire and all this stuff. Couldn't care less. I'm glad that I'm able to do this. I'm glad I make some money from ads when I jump to new channels. But it's about reaching more people, because the more people we reach, and I say we because we're all in this together, the more people this message reaches, the more people that are going to start seeing clearly. And when crap hits the fan, they're not going to fall for the deceptions that are coming. Like, oh, it was Russia. Oh, it was the Republican extremists. And they're going to say, you know what? This is way too suspicious. All this stuff going on at once. It's the CIA. It's our own government. And it's been them all along doing this to us and weakening us. It's tactics used by Stalin. Tactics used by Hitler. Tactics that we can't fall for anymore. It's time to stand up. It's time to get strong. And when the time comes, when they keep pushing, there will be a time for the thing that everybody asked for. But it's not time yet. It's time to prepare. It's time to get ready. And it's time to stay vigilant. I thank you guys for being here. Appreciate you all greatly. Hope to see you on the website at timeforjudgment.com. Thanks again. God bless all of you and your families.